There's a study from Harvard that most people over 65 have never heard about, and it contains one of the most encouraging findings in longevity research of the past decade. Researchers at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health tracked over 100,000 adults for decades and found that people who consistently maintained 5 specific healthy behaviors lived an average of 12 to 14 years longer in good health than those who did not. Not just longer, healthier, more mobile, more cognitively sharp, more independent. Today I want to give you the 6 morning habits that the strongest published research supports for longevity after 65. Not 30 habits, not a complicated protocol. 6 things you can do in the first 60 minutes after waking. I will explain the specific biological mechanism behind each one, because knowing why something works is what makes you actually do it. And I will add an angle that no other channel on this topic covers, because as a urologist, I can tell you exactly what these habits do for your kidneys, bladder, and pelvic health specifically. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Kavaler. I am a board-certified urologist and urogynecologist with over 20 years of clinical practice. My patients are predominantly adults in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and the question I hear most often is, what can I actually do to stay functional, independent, and well as I get older? Today I want to give you the evidence-based answer. Habit 1. Drink 250 to 300 milliliters of water within the first 10 minutes of waking, before coffee, before food, before anything else. After 7 to 8 hours of sleep, your blood is at its most concentrated, meaning slightly more viscous and slower moving. Your blood pressure regulation system is recalibrating, and your kidneys, which have been concentrating urine through the night, are ready to resume active filtration. Research published in Hypertension Research found that morning hydration in older adults measurably improved blood pressure control and reduced morning cardiovascular risk. The window between waking and mid-morning when heart attack and stroke risk is statistically highest. From a urology perspective, morning hydration immediately restores renal perfusion pressure, the blood pressure inside the kidney's filtration units, to daytime levels. For anyone with any degree of kidney function decline, which affects a significant proportion of adults over 65, that morning rehydration window is clinically important. Add the juice of half a lemon to this water if you want an additional benefit. Citrate in lemon juice inhibits calcium oxalate crystal formation in the kidneys, the primary mechanism behind the most common type of kidney stone. 1 glass of lemon water every morning is one of the simplest kidney stone prevention strategies available. Habit 2. Step outside or stand by a window with direct sunlight exposure for 10 minutes within 30 minutes of waking. Morning light is the primary Zeitgeber, the biological time signal that sets your circadian rhythm for the entire day. It does this by triggering a specific photoreceptor pathway in the retina that signals the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus to initiate cortisol release, suppress melatonin, and synchronize the body's master clock. A study published in the Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry found that morning sunlight exposure in older adults improved sleep quality, reduced daytime fatigue, and improved mood regulation significantly compared to adults who did not receive morning light exposure. The reason this matters for longevity is more fundamental than sleep. Circadian misalignment, when your body clock is consistently desynchronized from the light-dark cycle, has been linked in multiple studies to accelerated cellular aging, increased inflammatory markers, and higher risk of metabolic disease. 10 minutes of morning sunlight is the most efficient circadian reset available at zero cost. Habit 3. Perform 10 minutes of intentional movement, walking, light resistance work, or stretching before sitting down for the morning. A meta-analysis published in the BMJ following over 36,000 adults found that even 10 minutes of light to moderate physical activity in the morning was associated with significantly lower all-cause mortality compared to sedentary morning behavior. The mechanism is AMPK activation, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase, the cellular enzyme that is triggered by muscular contraction and acts as a master metabolic regulator. AMPK initiates glucose uptake, mitochondrial biogenesis, and autophagy, the cellular cleaning process that removes damaged proteins and organelles that accumulate with age. Autophagy is the mechanism the competitor video called the fountain of youth cellular repair process. That description is not wrong. Autophagy is genuinely remarkable, but it is triggered reliably by movement and mild metabolic stress, not by a single mysterious habit. 10 minutes of movement every morning is one of the most consistent autophagy stimuli available to an older adult outside of fasting. For pelvic health specifically, morning movement before sitting also activates the pelvic floor musculature through hip extension and weight bearing. Adults who sit for their first hour after waking consistently show higher rates of pelvic floor dysfunction than those who move first. That is a clinical pattern I observe regularly in my practice. Habit 4. Eat a breakfast that includes 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein within 60 minutes of waking. After 65, the ability to synthesize muscle protein from dietary amino acids, called anabolic sensitivity, declines significantly. Older adults require both more protein per meal and better distribution of protein across the day to maintain the same muscle protein synthesis response that younger adults achieve with less. Research from Cell Metabolism by Matson and colleagues has documented how protein and caloric intake timing directly affects muscle preservation and metabolic health in older adults. The morning meal is the most important window for protein intake because it follows the overnight fasting period when muscle protein breakdown is at its highest. 25 to 30 grams of protein at breakfast, from eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, salmon, or a quality protein source, maximizes the leucine threshold required to trigger muscle protein synthesis. This is not aesthetics. Muscle mass after 65 directly predicts fall risk, functional independence, glucose regulation, and long-term survival. Habit 5. 5 minutes of slow, diaphragmatic breathing or quiet mindful stillness before any screen time or news consumption. Morning cortisol, the stress hormone, peaks within 30 to 45 minutes of waking in a pattern called the cortisol awakening response. This natural peak is normal and healthy, but in adults who immediately engage with phones, news, or stressful demands on waking, the cortisol awakening response can be amplified and sustained well into the morning. Chronically elevated cortisol directly suppresses immune function, reduces anabolic hormone activity, accelerates bone density loss, and is one of the strongest independent predictors of accelerated biological aging in older adults. 5 minutes of slow breathing, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reduces cortisol response, and establishes a lower hormonal stress baseline for the entire day. This is not wellness language. The parasympathetic and autonomic nervous system data behind breathwork is well established in cardiovascular and neurological research. Habit 6. Make one meaningful social connection, a phone call, a conversation, a message to someone you care about, before noon. This may sound out of place in a health video, but the longevity research on social connection is as strong as the data on physical activity and nutrition, and far more often ignored. The Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running studies of adult health in history, spanning over 80 years, found that close relationship quality was the single strongest predictor of physical health, cognitive function, and longevity in older adults, stronger than cholesterol levels, exercise frequency, or any individual lifestyle metric. Social isolation in older adults is associated with higher levels of inflammatory markers, accelerated cognitive decline, elevated cortisol, and increased all-cause mortality. The mechanism is partially neurological. Social connection activates oxytocin and serotonin pathways that directly regulate inflammation and immune function, and partially behavioral, as connected older adults are more likely to maintain all the other habits on this list. One morning connection. It takes 2 minutes, and the evidence suggests it is one of the most powerful things you can do for your long-term health. 6 habits. Water, sunlight, movement, protein, breathing, and connection. All of them supported by published clinical research, none of them requiring money, equipment, or a complete lifestyle overhaul. The honest version of the Harvard finding is this: people who maintain habits like these consistently live an average of 12 to 14 additional healthy years. Not 30 as some videos claim, but 12 to 14 years of functioning well, moving freely, and thinking clearly. That is an extraordinary gift from choices you can begin making tomorrow morning. I am Dr. Elizabeth Kavaler. I will see you in the next video.